Hi, I'm Courtney.
And I'm Beth.
Welcome to Dead Reckoning, the podcast where death isn't the end of the story.
And today we're doing this bonus episode. First bonus episode, responding to the news of the moment. Because the city of San Francisco just agreed to pay $750,000 in a settlement to a former investigator who worked in the medical examiner's office. She claims she was fired after she reported that the skull of an unidentified man had gone missing and might have been thrown away, which is exactly why we're here.
We're here to talk about the case of the missing skull, which, as Beth is going to tell us, was never really missing, but makes for a good story.
I think we've had this conversation where you're like, the one about the missing skull. And I was like, which missing skull? Because this is not the only one that has crossed our virtual desks over the past couple of years.
Big fans of this office we are here. One day, actually not one day, we'll keep you guys updated on the antics at this office because there's enough to fill an entire season.
So I'm going to start with what we know about who this missing skull belonged to. On October 10th, 2014, Guy was out for a walk around Lake Merced. For people who are not local to us, Lake Merced is a natural lake in sort of the southwest corner of San Francisco, right on the border near Daly City, South San Francisco. So this guy's out for a walk, and can you imagine? He finds a dead body.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, in an encampment in a ravine by the lake. The dead person was a white man around the age of 60. He was face down and unresponsive. The trail walker went back up to the road and flagged down the first police officer he saw, who was a San Francisco State University security cop.
Yeah, the university is right over there.
Yeah, that guy called the paramedics. They came out, but he was, quote, determined to be beyond any life-saving efforts, which is shorthand for he'd been dead for a little while.
Yeah, it seems like he was clearly dead. I mean, yeah. I get why you're calling the paramedics. But also, Beth, is this someone who was living out there? Okay, yeah.
So, I mean, there was all these clues around him. He had a tent with sleeping bags and blankets. There were signs of cigarette smoking, drinking, and drug use. And his body had started to decompose. But there wasn't any sign of what they said was foul play. He wasn't attacked. He wasn't murdered. He died.
He didn't have obvious signs. No gunshot wounds or anything. Yeah.
They found a cell phone at the encampment, but the battery was dead. And the phone hadn't had any service since 2013. So the previous year sometime. They took it back to the police station. They charged the battery. They tried calling some of the contacts that were saved at the phone, but it seemed like the person whose phone it was still alive. So that didn't help them identify this person. They also found a Medicare card that belonged to another person. That person was also still alive. So
this happens a lot, right?
Yeah.
I'm not to interrupt you as I'm interrupting you, but when we talked about this other episode with Amy Shea and how identifying people who maybe have fallen through the cracks in the system can be very difficult because of, the person that they misidentified when we talked about in that case also had the wrong ID, the wrong social security card or something where it can lead to a false positive or negative. Yeah.
Yeah. And in this case, it seems like they were really doing their due diligence. They didn't accidentally identify this guy as whoever owned the cell phone or whoever's Medicare card this was. So as the police were working on this, the body went to the San Francisco medical examiner's office so that they could continue to try to figure out his identify and notify his next of kin. I'm going to pause for a moment here so we can talk about the difference between a coroner and a medical examiner.
Which one is Dr. K. Scarpetta?
Oh, God.
Just kidding.
I saw that series. It was really stupid.
My kids just started watching it and they're obsessed with it. And I was like, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure she's a medical examiner. So here's the thing. In most places, a coroner is an elected position. They're usually not doctors. and they're usually affiliated with the sheriff's department of the county where they work. So their job is to determine the circumstances of somebody's death, but not necessarily how, like, their cause of death. They're figuring out, like, oh, this guy was murdered, but they might not be able to figure out, oh, it was a blunt weapon to the head kind of a thing.
That's what they call an inquest, right? It's kind of like a grand jury where,
If they do need to determine cause of death or do a forensic examination of a body, they will call in forensic pathologists to do that work. A medical examiner is appointed, not elected, appointed by the city. They're usually a licensed physician. They're always a licensed physician and a forensic pathologist. They determine actual causes of death. They perform autopsies. San Francisco used to have a coroner. And it's funny, on the medical examiner's website now, they're like, the coroner is an antiquated system that was invented in Britain in like the 1100s. Like, we're so much better than that now. Anyway.
Girl, I know.
I'm not sure how long it's been since we switched from coroner to medical examiner. I did find a book that looked at like the history of the coroner's office from like 1850 to 1980, so possibly until 1980.
You should drop that in the notes because I would like to read that.
Medical examiner does not investigate deaths by natural causes. They look at homicides, suicides, accidents, deaths of unidentified people, and sometimes in cases where someone may have had a contagious disease, like an unusual contagious disease, plague, smallpox, any of those kinds of things.
Pest house candidates.
Yes, exactly. San Francisco is one of only a couple of Bay Area counties that have a medical examiner. Most of them still have coroners, which again is elected, works with the sheriff's department. Back with our deceased person, they did take fingerprints. I don't think they got any matches. They got DNA. They sent it to the California Department of Justice to compare against profiles in the state database. They have not gotten any matches back. And again, this is more than 10 years ago. I think they also sent it to a national criminal database, but they didn't get any hits. I don't think, unless it's like an active criminal investigation, that they would go to civilian sources of DNA. They would only match against...
like GEDmatch or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's an interesting question. I don't actually know if they... I think it's a very specific skill set to be going into those public forensic genealogy sites. And so I'm not sure they have the resources for stuff like that. That may be something like the California DOJ does or the FBI or something.
Yeah, I think, for folks familiar with this, the Golden State Killer was eventually tracked down because of civilian DNA matching. But it's unusual. Like, they wouldn't probably use it just to figure out who somebody died of natural causes was.
Yeah, and for the most part, your DNA is only on file if you've been convicted of a crime,
right?
Or if you've been arrested in California. Sometimes they can take your DNA. So this person potentially just was never involved in the justice system in that way that they would have their DNA, especially back in 2013.
Which is lucky, because a lot of homeless people do get swept up in, police harassment, arrests, confiscation of their stuff.
Not here. Not in the socialist paradise of San Francisco, Beth. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So, it raises a good point. He was lucky to not have any kind of a criminal record, but then unlucky because we don't know who he is. They did an autopsy. They could not figure out how he died from the autopsy. Like, he looked like he was in good health, and he didn't have any scars or tattoos that could help identify him. So they had his remains in custody, and just didn't have any luck figuring out who he was. In 2016, they came up with this idea, starting by, sorry, this is going to be gross for a minute.
Exciting.
They took his head off. They put it in their beetle tank to remove any of the remaining flesh that was on it.
Raise your hand if you know about dermestid beetles. If you're listening to this podcast, probably you do.
They sent his skull to a forensic artist for facial reconstruction. The artist performed a reconstruction. It took about 5 months and sent it back to the medical examiner with this clay model of the man's face with the skull inside of it. So now he looks like a model head. And I guess it was like mounted on something so that he could be displayed. This is great if like you want to help find somebody who could recognize him. But it also obscures the fact that there's still human remains inside this object.
Yes, that is the weird part about this story, because if you see the model, which I'm sure most people have seen if they've been following this story, this guy's face has been splashed all over all kinds of newspapers, which, side note, I mean, maybe that'll help identify his remains. I don't know. But anyway, you look at it and it looks like a clay model, but his actual skull is inside there. Important thing to remember in the context of what we're about to discuss.
So once they got the reconstruction back, they shared some photos of what he looked like in the hopes of somebody identifying him. They still haven't heard anything back. His remains have been with the medical examiner's office since 2014.
So the rest of him too.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. So they have the head, but they didn't cremate the body or anything?
No, they can't cremate until they identify.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Yeah.
Do they just keep them in a refrigerator?
A freezer.
No shit.
Oh my God.
Wait.
For how long?
As long as it takes.
I didn't know that. I thought they kept it for like 10 years or something, and then they, oh shit, okay.
No, I think.
Well, there's your horror movie.
Yeah.
Pluribus.
Oh my God.
That's not what that is.
Deep cut.
We're not drinking human milk here.
Or whatever speak for yourself, bitch, okay? It's raw milk.
But yeah, so I mean, I obtained a lot of records from the medical examiner's office, just waiting for this case to resolve. And there's a long list of remains in custody.
Wow.
And they have a section they call high density storage, which I believe is basically a freezer.
A walk-in.
Yeah.
High density storage. I wonder if the people in the medical examiner's office also go and scream in their walk-in, like I did in our restaurant.
Yes, that is a rite of passage in the restaurant industry. You have to cry in the walk-in.
So in 2017, the medical examiner's office moved. The office used to be located in the San Francisco Hall of Justice, which is the criminal court and also one of the jails. And it's not a well-kept place.
Oh, it's falling apart.
Yeah,
it's
there's rats and sewage. And
it's terrible. It looks like it's like from the 1950s. Like they have that old lettering. It's just, it's a total shithole.
Well, and it's built on a former swamp. So anyway, they moved to a fancy new building, sort of in the southeast part of the city on Newhall Street, again in 2017. And that same year, the office lost its national accreditation, which is a big deal.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but San Francisco.
Yeah. They had started building up a large backlog of death investigations. Some were taking up to 6 months. Some were waiting for more than a year.
That is fucking crazy. A year to get a death investigation.
Yeah. And I've heard, like, kind of off the record that they were being slow to even pick up deceased people.
Girl.
They would prioritize people who died on the streets. And so, like, if somebody died in your family home, you could be waiting quite a few many hours beyond when you requested pickup.
Oh, dude.
And it was a huge problem for families who need closure, but they also need, like, the death certificate so that they can do the paperwork related to people dying.
Collect insurance if you have it, transfer titles. I mean, imagine having to wait. Well, imagine having to wait a year for like a declaration on a death like that. Like
Yeah, the Chronicle did a big investigation. I'll put the article in the show notes. But one family that they talked to said they couldn't access their son's retirement account, which they needed to help pay for his funeral expenses because they didn't have the records from the medical examiner's office.
Yeah, unacceptable.
The office handles more than 1,000 death investigations per year. It was 1,200 in 2013. And at that point, they were down to one forensic pathologist. They usually have 4. There was a national shortage of forensic pathologists. And at the same time, overdose deaths were going up, and they have to investigate all of those. So it was like a shitstorm of horrible things happening at once. But also, they had this chief medical examiner, Amy Hart, who had a reputation for micromanaging people and having like management methods that slowed things down.
Wait, she was the medical examiner, the actual doctor?
She was the chief medical examiner.
Okay.
So the person who's supervising all of the others.
Got it.
The current chief medical examiner, whose name is Chris Liverman, was appointed in 2021. I just want to point out, I noticed that her name is Amy Hart. It's Hart, but it's still Hart. And his name is Liverman. And I'm like, these seem like perfect names for people who are doing autopsies all day.
Yes.
So the medical examiner's office got its provisional accreditation back in 2021, is fully accredited again now. So it's doing well. They've had no slip-ups-ish. But now we get to a lawsuit filed by this former investigator. She filed it in 2024. Her name is Sonia Komanek Adachi. I'm just going to call her Sonia from now on. And the main target of her lawsuit is the executive director of the office, which is different than the chief medical examiner. The executive director, his name is David Serrano Sewell. I will be calling him David. It's weird that they both have these hyphenated last names, but I'm not going to try to trip over them repeatedly.
We are on a first name basis with the litigants in this case.
I want to be careful that all of the things that she is accusing him of in the lawsuit have not been proven in court. They settled out of court. So I'm going to try to say allegedly as much as possible. Please don't sue us. Everything is alleged and not proven. Okay?
Yeah. We'll be talking about the allegations in the complaint and the response. But like Beth said, there is no court order yet. There's just an approved settlement. The parties, I'm sure, will sign some kind of non-disclosure agreement or something. But we are relying solely on the allegations in the lawsuit, the response by the defendant filed in court, and the news outlets that are covering this.
Yeah, okay, exactly. Sonia claims that in December 2022, she was asked to perform a detailed accounting of the body parts in the medical examiner's custody. This is all the stuff that they have that is from open cases. And this was part of her job to do this, to account for everything, where is it, and note it all down. She said that this man's skull in the model remained in the office until December 2022. She discovered it was missing. It looks like she thought it was in an area of the office called the observation area or a viewing room, and like a place where you can see different things. I don't know what else would be in this room, but this is something somewhat for display purposes.
The idea being that you would see this man's face and maybe identify him or
exactly. Before she discovered that this skull with the reconstruction was missing, she says that the executive director, David, had been rushing around the office to clean it for an inspection. I'm not sure if it was related to the accreditation stuff, but given the timing, it very well could have been. In the lawsuit, she says it appeared highly likely that during the cleaning, Sewell had inexplicably discarded the skull.
You just see him like cartoonishly sweeping the skull. Allegedly.
Yes. So yeah, she thought that he might have just thrown it away thinking oh, this is just a model. We don't need it anymore.
Right. That maybe it was just a prop or an educational tool versus actual human remains in an active investigation. Yeah.
Yeah. And like he had been around, he's been with this office for a long time. He was around when they were trying to figure out who this man was, but it's not his job to like track the individual cases. So I don't think you could say he should have known what this was.
He's kind of like an operations manager, right, Beth? He's kind of running the office. He's not involved in the identification or the science or anything, right?
Correct. And this is a problem for a couple of reasons. Without it, the man can't be identified, but also destroying human remains, especially for the medical examiner, is against the law. So Sonia went to report it to everyone in the department, and it becomes a whistleblower situation because now she's accusing him of doing something illegal. So the court records say that David found the skull again in February 2024 after many other employees looked and looked and looked for it and couldn't find it.
Where was it?
I think what they said was that it was in this high density storage area. I'll get back to that in a minute.
Please do.
It may very well be that they were like, let's not have this in the viewing area anymore. Let's put it back with the rest of his body. I mean, a totally normal thing to do, but
that is reasonable, yes.
It's only really one person's job to track where everybody's parts are. So it's interesting that Sonia's lawyer said to the press just recently, so she was fired, and she claims that she was fired in part for reporting this misstep or whatever we want to call it. And they said, her lawyer said it was only after that she was fired that they found the skull again. I mean, it raises questions about, like, was it actually, like, had everyone lost track of it? It appears to have never left the building, but we don't know that for sure.
Right. And there are some other allegations in her complaint as well, right, Beth? It's not just this whistleblower retaliation. Do you want to tell us, like, quickly what else she alleged?
Well,
or is that later in the outline? Sorry, I'm micromanaging you like Karen Hart.
How dare you? Once she filed her lawsuit, again in early 2024, the San Francisco Standard was the first to report about it. And they said that David thought that this allegation was making an office look bad and that it might make them look bad with the accreditation agency while they were trying to get their accreditation back, which set up the possibility of him, like, retaliating against her for reporting it to anybody, for filing a lawsuit, all of these different things. Here's one of the other things, and Courtney, this is something that you and I have talked a lot about. In Sonia's lawsuit, she says that David Serrano Sewell interfered in the investigation into the manner of death of the stepson of one of the members of the Board of Supervisors. And I'm just quoting directly from the lawsuit because that's the safest thing to do here. He was aware that the board member did not want the manner of death to be described as a suicide. So he informed staff that the death was not a suicide, a direct contradiction of the findings of the investigation. Sewell had no authority or qualification to establish the manner of death, again, not his job, or to exert influence on the medical examiner's office for political purposes. So it sounds to me like the supervisor was like, please don't make it look like my stepson killed himself. And David was like, sure, I can do that, allegedly.
Sonia, the plaintiff, she alleges a pattern of abuse of authority from David. We're going by first names. And this is one of her allegations. And Beth and I talked about this because when I read this complaint way back when, I saw the skull headline, like, thanks everybody who sent it to me, like 20 of you. And I was pull up the complaint, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, why is the missing skull, the headline here, and not this allegation that he's interfering in a death investigation, right? That's a much more serious allegation. It's like basically a corruption allegation.
Yeah.
And I wrote an email to the reporter that reported at the Standard and said, hey, did you look into this part? And they didn't write me back. I have not seen it reported on past the allegation. So like when this lawsuit was settled, which we'll get to, KQED's coverage mentions the allegation, but they don't seem to have investigated. Maybe they did and they didn't find anything. I did a cursory search to see if I could find any information about something like this happening. I could not. I was digging around, and actually, I said at the time, I'm not a reporter and I don't know how far to dig into this because it's kind of squicky, right? But, I'm not sure how much I need to be looking into that. Just to show you how badly I wanted the answer to this, you guys, I broke down and asked fucking AI. Okay. I am on the record AI hater OG from the start, but I was like, all right, let me see what fucking Gemini has to say about this, right? And the robot also came up empty. Can't find anything. That's maybe something for a seasoned reporter like Beth Weingartner to look into. But
I mean, I looked a little bit. You're right. It's very uncomfortable because, it's private, whether somebody ends their life or not. It's none of our business.
Yes. However, if that person is putting pressure on a government office to change health records, that is our business as the public.
It's a real problem.
Illegal,
But I think my hunch is that it hasn't been reported on because no one will talk about it.
Yeah, it seems like there is not enough like public-facing, easily obtainable information. The facts could also be a little bit wrong on it. She could be remembering that it's a stepson. It could have been a stepdaughter. It could have been a half sister. Like, it's possible that the details are a little bit off on it. And I did not feel comfortable. Like you said, I don't know the story there. And it made me feel kind of weird looking into it. I think that's something for somebody who has more training and like understands journalistic ethics and things like that to look into. But it is interesting. I don't know if it's surprising to me, but it's interesting that the headline of this story is the skull and not the skull, which was found, by the way, and not these allegations of corruption. And also in the complaint, she also alleges gender-based discrimination.
So apparently he was not allegedly the best person to work for. He berated Sonia for an email that went around criticizing his management style, even though she did not write it.
According to the complaint.
She didn't write the email, but he yelled at her about it. He would call her after hours, on weekends, and even when she was on medical leave. A couple of people who were deposed for this case said that he had used racial slurs in the office. He had a pattern of kind of forcing people out of jobs, particularly women. But Sonia says that after she reported the missing skull, he started trying to drive her out of her job. She went for a promotion, and he ordered her to submit to a polygraph test. It's not required for the position that she was going for, and it would be illegal to require it when it's not required. In the defense documents, it's interesting. They claim she insisted on doing a polygraph test, even though it was optional.
Yeah, the response from the city is very different.
Of course it is. This is how the law works, right?
Yes, it's an adversarial system. And we will put the links for the documents in the show notes if you want to go read these yourself. Basically, the city says she was fired for a different reason.
Yeah, and when we'll get into that. But they said that their hiring decisions were not based on the outcomes of the polygraph anyway, so why did she even have to go through it? She reported the obligatory polygraph to HR. They didn't do anything about it. She did get the promotion, but David told her that it was only a temporary 6-month position instead of a permanent hire. So now she's in this provisional status. She's an at-will employee. She can be fired for any reason. Her colleagues in the deposition said that she was the top candidate for the job. They interviewed 6 people. She was number 1. She was always professional and hardworking and qualified. A month after she got the promotion, her grandmother died. Her family worked with a funeral home in Placer County called Trident Roseville. And this funeral home had her grandmother's remains for about a month and did not cremate her, which is a whole, like, we've talked about malfeasance in the funeral industry. This is not normal. It's not okay. It's not good.
But it does happen.
So, acting in her individual capacity, she filed a complaint with the Department of Consumer Affairs. And the Cemetery and Funeral Bureau started investigating her complaint, which they should do. At some point, the funeral home, Trident Roseville, figured out that she worked for the medical examiner's office. I think somebody intimated that they just Googled her name and found it. And then they got in touch with the medical examiner's office and claimed that because she had this knowledge of the death industry and because she worked for the office, she wasn't allowed to file a complaint about how they handled her grandmother's case, which makes no sense.
Right. And I'm sure you're going to get into it. This is just this complicating factor in the whole lawsuit.
Right. Yeah. This is her manager looking for a reason to push her out because she made him look bad in front of the press.
Allegedly.
So, yeah, somehow this turned into the idea that she was inappropriately using her city position to put pressure on the funeral home for doing something that they had done wrong. So, anyway, David found out about it. He got involved. He wanted her to sign a no-contact agreement with the funeral home that was handling her grandmother, even though she was like power of attorney for her grandmother. She had to abandon the complaint. He also told the Department of Consumer Affairs to halt their investigation, and they did.
Yeah. I mean, this is basically why the city says she was fired.
Mm-hmm.
They say she was abusing her position by using her title to move a complaint faster or to get some kind of leverage over this funeral home for their negligence.
Right. And interestingly, one of her coworkers, somebody who still works for the medical examiner, also reached out to the funeral home and had some conversations and accidentally sent them one of these communications from his work email.
Oh my God.
And of course, he never faced any repercussions for it at all.
Right.
So David told Sonia that if she did not sign the no contact agreement, that he would fire her. And he also tried to interfere with Sonia's mom's separate complaint against the funeral home. So, like, he's all up in here trying to mess things up.
Allegedly.
Thank you.
Prego.
There are a lot of allegations that he was discriminatory against women in particular, including harassment. Another female employee quit because of his behavior. He allegedly told Sonia at one point that she needed to control her facial expressions.
Something that has been said to me many times, by the way. So I never found it actionable, but maybe I should have. Fix your face.
The hard part about reading this complaint was like, yeah, at some point in my career, a man has said all of these things to me, basically, or has interfered with a friend or something like that. So you're reading it and you're like, yeah, this happened.
Mm-hmm.
Or taking your actions as being too aggressive, like how she's moving with the funeral, the funeral home, and whomst among us? Yeah,
I reported on the trial of Ellen Powell, who worked for a VC company. She went to trial in 2015. And
I remember that.
It was awful because, like, her entire treatment was obviously gender-based, but they came up with just enough other reasons to keep her out of the loop on things, and so that there was plausible deniability. Oh no, that wasn't because of her gender. It was because of this or that or the other thing.
Yeah, we all know. Yeah.
These cases are very hard to prove for that exact reason. So it's really frustrating. So when Sonia introduced her boyfriend to David, he said, well, it's always good to marry up.
Ew. I mean, I guess you gotta I was going to say read for tone or whatever, but just don't do it. You guys, come on.
The complaint has many more examples of his allegedly bad behavior towards women in the office. I didn't want to go into all of it because it's a little outside the purview of this podcast, but it's there.
She's trying to establish a pattern, right? Because that's what you have to do. Unless there's something super overt, like he says to you, I'm firing you because you're a woman. You got to establish the pattern of behavior, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked a little bit about her medical leave. I don't know if this is the one or if she had more than one. But Sonia contracted MRSA while working in the morgue.
Ooh, I read that and I clenched, man.
Yeah.
Let me bring it back and say, oh my God, MRSA from the morgue. This poor woman.
This does seem a little bit like one of the risks of working with the dead. She was out sick for 2 weeks, but because she was afraid of retaliation from David, she didn't file a workers' compensation claim. And she said that during her employment, other female staffers had been unable to work due to injuries, and male staffers had frequently made comments that, quote, all the female investigators are useless and sick.
Cool.
Right, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hostile work environment. Mm-hmm. Allegedly.
So we move ahead to September 2023. Sonia is still in her temporary position. She was ranked number 1 for the permanent position. But a month later, David said he was terminating her employment and allegedly provided shifting reasons for her termination, including budget cuts. Her position was no longer being supported. And then after she questioned this, she was told that by filing a complaint about her grandmother's untimely cremation, she had exerted undue influence in her position with the medical examiner's office.
I don't know. You know that anytime somebody gives you well, it's actually this, it's actually this, it's actually this. They're probably making some shit up. But that's basically what the city says is it was about this alleged abuse of authority on her part by saying she had used her name and title to get
which again, it appears she didn't do. It looks like they found out through other means that she worked for this department. I'm not going to get into the weeds too much legally, but the city basically filed for the court to make a ruling to dismiss the case. They didn't really mention the skull in their defense documents. Can't imagine why.
David Chu was like, cut it out. Don't put it in there. We're getting enough press on this.
So, one of the things they said was that Sonia did not prove or produce evidence that her termination had anything to do with gender. Of course they did.
Sure.
And they said, even if she could prove that, the city has shown that its decisions were motivated by the investigation into her alleged misuse of her city title, which is a legitimate and non-discriminatory reason for firing somebody. They also said that she was not entitled to the whistleblower claim because she didn't show that the decision to fire her had anything to do with the email that she sent reporting the missing skull, which she says started the whole thing.
Yes.
In late November 2025, the parties told the court that they had reached a settlement. This went through several rounds of court stuff, as it has to do, and then the city has to approve it because the city pays for these when a city agency is involved. The settlement amount is $750,000.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the Board of Supervisors approved it, right?
April 14th.
I didn't realize that the Board of Supervisors had to, that makes sense, right? That they have to
I think they have to approve any
it.
large expenditures of money. So, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
According to the Chronicle, a spokesperson for the city attorney's office said that the skull had never left the medical examiner's office, which seems to comport with the documents that I've looked at. But she said that the reason that they settled was partly because of the inherent costs of continued litigation. Litigation is expensive, but also $750,000 is a lot if you think that this is also going to be more expensive going forward.
Yes, there are many reasons why people settle, and the government has a reputation of having deep pockets and settling. They do have a duty to litigate these things on behalf of the city employees, right? But it probably is a cost issue.
Not just a cost issue, but to me, the fact that this came after the city was like, you should just throw out their case. There's no merit. Like, if the judge had gone ahead and said, yes, you're right, this case has no merit, then that's what would have happened. But yeah, I mean, if it had looked good for the city to get their case dismissed, then I don't think they would have settled.
Yeah, that's kind of like, that's part of settlement negotiations too, right?
Yeah.
You kind of go up to a lot of people go right up to the deadline, how you think it's going to go, right?
Yeah. But of course we'll never know, because the part of the settlement usually is that they don't have to talk about the case anymore. And in fact, as you said, they usually sign agreements saying they won't talk about it.
I'm sure they'll sign like a non-disclosure. There'll be a non-disclosure clause in there. That's like part of the value of settling, right? Is you kind of take it out of the public eye.
Yeah.
Obviously, Beth and I have been interested in this case and following it. And I texted Beth and asked her when it first came out. The plaintiff's name is Sonia Komenek Adachi. And if you are from San Francisco, you probably know the name Adachi. Jeff Adachi was our very famous public defender in the 2010s, right? And so I was like, Beth, do you know if they're related? And Beth was like, nah, I don't know, dude. So once again, I asked Gemini, because I went onto LinkedIn and looked at her profile, and I couldn't get my Facebook open because I lost the password a long time ago for a good reason, because I don't want to fucking be on there. And I was like, I can't. I was like trying, and then I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is crazy. So I don't think they are related, right? But I have what it jogged to mind was the death investigation of Jeff Adachi in 2019, where there were also allegations of a cover-up or an attempted cover-up in the medical examiner's office.
Yeah.
This is not the first time that these kind of allegations have been reported on, which again is why I find it very interesting that the skull is what is making the headlines and not the corruption allegations.
Yeah.
Real quickly, if you guys don't know who Jeff Adachi was, he was our public defender in the city. He died in 2019. He was pretty young. He was only like 58. And it seems like he died partying with his girlfriend in their like love nest in North Beach. He had cocaine and alcohol in his system, but he also had high blood pressure and his arteries were like 70% blocked. So he was kind of known to be like a very dedicated public servant, and he was a very hardworking person.
Yeah, he was a really good guy, really nice person, worked hard in the defense of criminals.
Yes, he had a very good reputation. The PD's office under Adachi had a really good reputation. He was a nice guy. Would see him at like criminal justice reform events. He was also, I think, kind of a workaholic. I think these things kind of contributed to his poor health, but it wasn't visible. He was kind of like a smaller guy. He wasn't, he looked healthy, but, the cops in San Francisco allegedly did not love Jeff Adachi because he was a big offender of criminal defendants in the city. He ran the PD's office. And so they were accused of leaking kind of sordid details about his death and photos from the crime scene, not of him, but of the scene, like the bed and stuff, to the news. And there was also another lawsuit, a cover-up. And in this case, the operations director at the medical examiner's office at the time testified that he was pressured to leave the drugs and alcohol out of the final autopsy report and death findings. We know this because he refused to do it, was fired, and then he sued. So it's not the exact same pattern of events, but there's some similarities here, right?
Yeah.
This person, I think he was a technician or maybe a pathologist. He won $436,000. And I just have a little note in here that says, that's over $1 million worth of damages just in 10 years.
Yeah, in these two cases.
Less than 10 years. Imagine how many cold cases we could solve. Imagine how many bodies we could clear out of high volume storage.
Yeah.
If they would quit doing shit like this and allegedly quit being corrupt and work the fucking cases, right? And not try to alter findings and do favors for supervisors, allegedly. Just that's $1 million right there, right? I mean, we don't even have time to get into the backlog of criminal investigations generally. Mm-hmm. The depressingly low close rate of the homicide investigations team in the city of San Francisco, the backlog of rape kits locally and nationwide. This is a misuse of public money that could go to solving crimes and making our communities safer, right? Yeah. I don't blame the Board of Supervisors for allocating the money for this. I'm sorry, I'm on the box. I'm on the soapbox. I'm banging the drum. We have this idea that we don't give enough money to the cops. We don't give enough money to these departments to get the safety results that we want. And that is not true. Frequently not true. And here we have, in this case, there's a lot of corruption allegations here. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Allegedly. I think we could be doing better with our taxpayer dollars. I am off the box.
Thank you. Although I will add to that and say that the police department has paid out millions of dollars to the families of people killed by cops in this city.
Do not even get me going on it.
Yeah. Again, money that could be spent better. Yes. Elsewhere, particularly right now when we have a huge deficit, nonprofits are being starved of money.
Transit's being cut.
Yeah.
So anyway, why spend an hour talking about this lawsuit? This is why, you guys. And if somebody is listening who's a reporter, maybe people are already working on this. Maybe someone is already investigating this and they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to get scooped or they don't want to get sued or whatever. We want to know, are these allegations, are there any merit to them? Has anybody looked into it? We would love to know. And hey, we're on Signal, if anybody's got a tip, hit us up. But if you hear anything, let us know because we would like to know. We think the public deserves to know.
What is it? show@deadreckoningpodcast.com. Please email us. I was going to share a little bit of my personal experience with this department because around the time that Sonia filed her lawsuit, I was working on stories for Mission Local about the unclaimed dead. I filed public records requests with the medical examiner's office. They stonewalled. They claimed they didn't have any documents related to my requests. They kept pushing me aside. They gave the same information that I had asked for to the San Francisco Standard, who was also coincidentally reporting at the same time, I think probably also inspired by the lawsuit. I did my articles. I filed a complaint with the Sunshine Task Force and won. So, basically all they do is they scold the office for saying you violated public records law. There's no real repercussions.
Right. It's not like they're now hand these documents over.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and by then it was too late anyway.
Yeah.
But I will say that I found a person within the city government who's able to work on behalf of the medical examiner's office. She's much more pleasant to work with. I was communicating directly with David and we were not having a good time trying to communicate with each other. I found it very frustrating. But this other person, so when I started requesting documents related to this unidentified person, I was able to get all the documents that I needed. And that was a nice outcome. And it helps us right now.
Yes. And as it should be, because then people don't, if you have a good experience and people are sharing information with you, reporters, journalists, anybody, researchers, you're more likely to take it at face value. Mm-hmm. Right?
One of the things that's interesting is that when I was trying to get records from them for my articles, they would not give me a photo of the facial reconstruction, claiming that they couldn't for some reason.
The one that's on the cover of the Daily Mail?
Yes.
They couldn't find it, Beth.
No, they claim.
Go take a picture of the head. I don't know where it is, though.
You're like, oh, it's.
Yeah, no, they claim that they could not give it to me. This, again, is a tool to help identify somebody who has been dead and unidentified for 12 years.
Yes, that's crazy. You are absolutely right. The whole point of using taxpayer dollars to get that reconstruction was so that we could help find this person's name and information and cremate them, right? Get their ashes to their family, whatever it is that they need.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's ridiculous.
So I wanted to wrap up by asking, talking about why does this case matter? I mean, yes, it exposes potential corruption in a city agency, publicly funded city agency, allegedly. But it also, this is an agency that is supposed to be doing death care for the most marginalized people in our city. People have been saying for a long time that its executive director is a bigot and a bully that forces people out. And maybe that's not somebody who should be handling this department that has such an important mission, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, that's why we're talking about it, because we care about this stuff. We care about the care of the dead of the city and that it's handled responsibly.
Yes, and we care about how our tax dollars are spent, regardless of what Fox News says about us.
Yes.
This just feels like so ancient to me. Like,
yeah, man.
I don't like the medical examiner and like the mob or something. I know that that's not the situation here, but it feels very dated.
You guys, I love San Francisco. I do identify as the problem.
Zero problems.
I love San Francisco. Beth and I both do. We're here. We're not going anywhere. We love it. We want to make it a better place.
Yeah. So. Thank you both very much for listening to me ramble for about an hour about all this stuff that has been living in my head rent-free since early 2024. I do want to say that if our listeners want to hear more about how cities like San Francisco handle death arrangements for people who are unhoused and unclaimed, please go back and listen to our interview with Amy Shea about her fantastic book, Too Poor to Die. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Beth. This was really interesting. I'm glad we got to do our first bonus pod.
I know. Responding to the news in a timely fashion.
Dead Reckoning, the podcast where death isn't the end of the story. Hosted by Courtney Minnick and Beth Weingartner, produced by Carolyn Kissick and Here Lies a Story, with art design by Dante Silliman. Our music is Act Calm by OTE. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Dead Reckoning on your favorite podcast platform or email us at show@deadreckoningpodcast.com. You can follow Courtney at Here Lies a Story on Instagram and at Courtney Minnick on Blue Sky and see more of her work at herelisastory.com. You can follow Beth at Beth Weingartner on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Mastodon, and see more of her work at bethweingartner.com.